Wonderful. So I'm doing mine on personal statement, and then in about 20 minutes, Ross will start his on interview practice. And I'm presuming you guys already know a lot about personal statement and stuff. I'm not going to go through the really basics. I'm just going to go straight into how you're going to write it. So if you want to literally get a pen and paper out right now and start writing things down and planning your personal statement, then please do. This is like a step-by-step process. So just to give a really basic overview, I recommend an introduction, conclusion, and about 3 paragraphs. And those 3 paragraphs would each have like their own sort of theme to it. So we'll get into that actually. There's no point in me explaining it. It's easier when it's just seen. So to start off, I want everyone to write in the chat loads of attributes of a doctor, attributes and skills. So I'll start off with you. For example, let me just exit this screen now so I can see what you're typing. So I'll give a few. Knowledgeable, empathetic, empathetic, and great at communication. Those are my 3. Now everyone else write loads of attributes and skills that you can possibly think of. Yeah, compassionate, that's a really good one. So any skills, attributes of a doctor. Dedicated, I like that. Yeah, I agree. Intelligent, yeah. Egoistical. Ross, you just have So like other ones could also be like a great listener, someone who's really attentive, someone who's altruistic, somebody who's very tenacious, hardworking, committed, someone who is resilient. Exactly, I agree. And someone who's some things that are a bit more skill-like are things like they're a scientist, they're good at teaching, they're good at being a leader, they're good at working in a team, stuff like that. So those are attributes. Now I have here, I'll share my screen again. So write these down that we've got here, and then I'll also show you my little list. So I can share my slides with you guys later, so don't bother writing this down, but I've got loads here. I'm not sure, can you see this, guys? Like a massive list. And I've helped my friends with their personal statements as well, and I've given them this list and we've added more to it and stuff. So you've now got a nice list of attributes, loads of skills of a doctor and attributes. So this is the theory. This page, this slide is slowly going to be built up more and more until you understand the full picture of a personal statement. So all these colors here are going to be different attributes. So maybe red is communication, blue is altruism, green is clinical skills, etc. You get the gist. So next up, categories. Now categories, what I mean by this is, for instance, work experience. How would you categorize all your experiences? So leadership experiences, teamwork experiences. These are all different types of ways you can categorize. So let me write those down. And if you guys can think of any other ways, like kind of think of like a CV as well. How would you categorize a CV? It's really similar. Think of different types of categories. So work experience, I'll write some down. Research, leadership. Can you guys think of anything else? Yeah, teamwork, really important. Think of like an MDT. Think of anything else, guys? Doesn't always have to be academic. So hobbies, could be awards, could be volunteering. So now we have 2 lists now. We have a list of attributes and we have a list of categories. So let me show you. Sorry, it's a bit tedious. I have to keep sharing my screen, but I feel like it just helps. So now we have a list of categories as well. There's probably more categories. It just depends on what experiences you have done. You can categorize them like that. So the next up is experience. And to save you all the trouble, I've written a few examples here. So work experience could be in a hospital or GP. Volunteering could be care home. I've also done volunteering as like working with children and after school club, or as a ward helper, helped out at primary school, teaching kids like arts and things. So loads of different types of volunteering. Education, so your A levels, if you're doing a master's degree, whatever. But then also like think a bit more abstract. Maybe you've done like an additional course. Maybe it was a first aid course. Maybe it was a course on even something not even related to medicine. It could have been a course on, I don't know, painting or something. Like write down literally everything you've ever done, no matter how small you think it is, and think as far back as you possibly can. Research, have you done an internship? Have you done something over the summer? Have you made a poster presentation? Whatever, add that in. Hobbies, awards, teamwork, leadership, etc. Societies is an example, but also I was, you know, if you have an employment history, talk about that. If you have, like if you volunteered as like, I don't know, science communicator or something like that, add all these things in. Try and make a massive list. And then reflections. This is the bit I feel like people struggle the most with, because as scientists, everyone sort of just dictates exactly what they've done as more like a description. But medical school is a personal statement because it needs to be personal. So you add in how your experiences have impacted you. And that's why we wrote that list of, right at the beginning, the list of attributes, because essentially what you're going to do is write down for each experience. So for hospital, for example, you're going to write about 6 points. 6 things that you learned from it, 6 things that it taught you from observing a doctor. So I don't know if you can see my personal statement here, but for instance, a reflection I can talk about is, let's see. So I was part of a company and we used to run medical events, and I wrote about how I learnt how to work in an interdisciplinary team and coordinate long-term projects. That is a reflection. And let's see, later on down the line, I'm talking about empathy as a support worker, and my reflection here is how I've kind of said it indirectly, but I've talked about how I'm working with children with limited communication. They're safeguarding things to be concerned about. They have some challenging behaviours, and what I've learned from that is that they convey it differently, and I have to use different alternative communication methods to empower these children. And to do that, I need to have empathy. I need to have good communication skills. So this is what I would describe as reflection. How these different experiences have impacted you, grown you, made you think back and think, oh wait, I could have done that better, I should have done this, or etc. Write down a load of reflections. So you can imagine you have a pretty large document at this rate, because you've got all your different experiences and different reflections on them. So then the final bit is combining it. And what I mean by that is for each of these, so we've got, you know, your attributes, your experiences, you've got your reflections on them. Now, each of these attributes, I've told you that they were different colors, so red might have been communication. You can see here, on my hospital reflection, I had a bit about communication. Maybe I learned something about communication there, maybe with a patient, how a doctor broke bad news, for example, and their communication, I learned something there. So I'm going to attribute to each of those reflections a skill. I'm just going to look at my list and just copy and paste whatever skills, attributes I think match to that reflection. And so then what you'll get is, you'll see that this hospital one, it has a lot of blue and purple. So maybe blue was empathy and purple was teamwork. So I'm going to now overall categorize that hospital experience as like where I learned a lot about teamwork and a lot about empathy. And I'm going to do the same for all these other areas that I've learned from these experiences. And I'm going to submerge them into paragraphs. I'm going to like combine them together essentially. So hospital, shown a lot of empathy here. Oh, that, you know, that works really well with the care home experience I did. I'm going to put those together a little bit. Oh, it seems like the internship stuff, I learned a lot about clinical skills there, and I learned a lot about evidence-based medicine. That works really nicely with my society work or something. You're going to combine things together and make them into paragraphs. So just literally copy and pasting into 3 paragraphs what you've already written. Or it could be 4, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, or it could be 2 massive ones. Either way, you're categorizing it at this stage. So to give you an example, how this sort of turns out in the personal statement is you're going to like make these different experiences flow together and make it seem like you basically are already a doctor. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So you want to make the medical school think that it's very easy for you to get to, it's very easy for them to work on you because you're already almost there as a doctor. That's what you want to give the impression. You want to make it sound like you already have all the attributes and skills of a doctor without directly saying it. So that's what I'm trying to get across. So for example, here I've talked about my leadership, and I've talked about how it's important to remain calm in unexpected situations, and how important it was to maintain teamwork to meet high expectations. Now I've said this responsibility I've had mirrored itself in my ICU work experience. The adaptability and swift thinking I gained from this experience, I saw magnified by the consultant. So I'm basically saying the skills I've got, I've seen as consultant have. And in this, like, just these few sentences, it took a long time to get it boiled down to this, but I've written so many different skills and attributes in such a short amount of space, they can just look at their mark scheme and go, has she got, okay, yeah, tick. Has she got communicate? Okay, yeah, tick. That's what you kind of want to do, but you don't want to say directly, I learned this, because it kind of gets boring after a while. You need to say it in different ways. You need to combine things together and kind of give the impression you're a doctor. So, and then I kind of talked about my work experience here as well. So the consultant I saw, you know, I admired the fact that they were working really well in a multidisciplinary team, and their leadership, they had swift thinking and adaptability clearly. And it kind of goes on. I've done it in other places as well. So for instance, I went to an ethics committee meeting, learnt about death, trust, empathetic storytelling. This kind of impacted me and taught me how important it was to have patient-centered care. And then I go on to talk about where I've been patient-centered and where I've shown empathy. So it's basically like saying these consultants all having this fancy meeting is basically me, because I do it too, but just like elsewhere. That's what you need to kind of say. It is hard to get your head around, but like I can share my personal statement with you guys and you can sort of get an idea of how to do it. But that's basically the crux of it. This little plan that I've got here, and I'm telling you, I've helped my sister this way. I've helped 2 other applicants this past year this way. This is just the way I do it for everyone, and it just works. So you can have your own methods. Everyone has their own way. But what I tend to do as well is some people think that if they've done a lot, that they can't include everything in their personal statement, but I would disagree. Don't try and cut things out. Everything you've done is important. Like if you think it's important, then write it down. If you think it's like, no, it's not that great, then okay, don't include it. But what I would do is my paragraphs that I've written, or my reflections and things that I'm trying to cut down and make it sound really fluent, what I would do is I'd highlight sentences green if I've done them, and I'd highlight sentences red if I hadn't included them yet in my personal statement. So I could quickly look back and go, okay, yeah, I've included that now, that's fine, whatever. Or, oh, that was a nice piece of information, not included yet, is where I can fit it in. And the only last piece of advice I'd give is about introduction and conclusion. So I've talked a lot. Let's get you guys talking a bit again. Can you guys give me reasons why you'd want to be a doctor? I don't care if it's a fake reason, if it's a reason you read, if it's somebody else's reason. Just give me reasons why you'd want to be a doctor. Yeah, to help people. Simple but important. I agree. Ross and Roshni and Sarah are carrying me through here, guys. Come on. Bruce, have you got anything to say? Come on, you could help me out here.
Adam, come on, guys. Even if Aiden,
why do you want to be a doctor?
even if it's for the PA courses, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. It's all exactly the same. Why do you want to be a physician's associate? Guys, just lie to me. Say that you love science or something. It's okay. Say it's because you like people. Either way, this question stuns everyone. So it's okay, I understand. It stunned me too. I didn't really know what to say. In the end, I just gave a really blunt answer. So my answer, I'll show you what I wrote. Oh, nice. People saying something. Rewarding career. Yes, I agree. Interesting. I agree. Meeting a variety of people. Absolutely. The diversity in medicine is something you learn so much about in medical school, about biases, about how to interpret different types of presentations of clinical diseases on different types of patients, black patients, white patients, etc. I want to develop a new role in healthcare. Yeah, that's very true. That's exactly what physician associate's role is. Past experience, enjoy science. Brilliant. contribute to the NHS. Yeah, there's a lot of patriotism at the moment, which is good. Awesome. So I'm going to share my screen for a final time. Share screen. Awesome. So my reason ultimately was I really struggled to think of a reason. I think I just sort of wanted to do medical school in high school. It just at a spur of a moment. I was like, I guess I like it. I guess I like biology. I guess I don't really know what else I want to do. And doctor sounds pretty cool. And then after that, I just went to work experience and I just got thrown into the process. But once I actually went to university, because I didn't get the grades I wanted during A level, that's when I really started to think very carefully why I wanted to be a doctor. And it led me to this answer. So every answer is correct. People talk about when they were a kid and they stubbed their toe and then they went to hospital and that's the reason they want to be a doctor, and that's fine too. I've seen people write literally that they stubbed their toe and something happened and they got into UCL. So clearly that that still works. But mine was that I'd had a variety of different experiences, all related to medicine, healthcare, etc. So whether that was medical education, whether it was doing an internship with an ostomy or being a support worker or my other volunteering roles, etc. They all had an interest in medicine. And I was able to go to a certain extent within those fields. But in order to truly go beyond those fields, if I wanted to go into medtech, for example, into medical technologies, if I really wanted to implement those technologies, I needed an insight of a doctor. I needed to be a collaborative individual who was, a scientist, but then also seeing if it was even worth doing that technology. Is it even needed? Do patients even want it? How are patients going to use that interface? There were so many things I needed that I realized that doctors do kind of have it all. They can be a businessman, they can be a researcher, they can be everything, and they can do these really unique internship placements for medical students only in London for medical tech companies and stuff. So that was just one example, but it could be used in anything else, whether it was like me teaching medical education. I'm trying to teach as a scientist, but this is only so far you can go. Clinical experience will always have a science element to it. So doctors kind of have the best of both. And I wanted to be able to provide patients as much as I can in as many faculties of interest that I had. So medicine really opened that up for me. And I realized that more when I was at Salford. Now, to get to this sort of conclusion that this is why I wanted to do medicine, it was a really hard process. I don't know why it was so hard. It ended up being a really simple answer, but just be honest with yourself. That's all I can say. Keep rewriting. Think of 5 different reasons, show it to 10 different people and ask them which one sounds good. And if they're all genuine, that's all that matters. Combine them, do whatever you want. So here I've literally written that it was a combination of all these different areas of my life. And I feel like if I were to combine these, if I were to combine these different areas of my life, that I'd be able to sort of reconcile my social commitments, insight, professional identity, and channel it into medicine. So that was my introduction. It could be shorter, could be longer, doesn't matter. And then right at the end, I've got here sort of a realistic insight. When I read this now, I feel like it's not realistic because I know more about what medical school is now, but you basically need to talk about the fact that you should be doing this to write your personal statement, but talk about the good and the bad about medical school. Talk about why you are resilient, like Nawashi said. Why should they choose you over someone else when that person maybe also has all this, they ticks all the same boxes? And what you need to show them is that you have a realistic insight. You don't think that medicine is like a superhero's job. You understand that it's stressful. You have mechanisms in place to deal with that kind of stress. You you've gone through a degree. You guys are different to everyone else. You guys are putting a bit more commitment into doing I keep talking about medicine. You guys are doing a master's. You're taking that extra education. You're doing so much more. That already shows a lot of commitment, but you just need to channel that through and say, that's why I'm doing it. So I kind of reiterated some of the points I made throughout my personal statement and talked about how I feel that my realistic insights with all my other experiences, education, whatever, will translate in medicine. Just a really nice, simple way to end it, but you just need to talk about the good and the bad, I guess, in the conclusion. So that's everything that I can think of. Does anyone have any questions before we roll on to Ross? I'm going to let Ross start at 1 minute, but guys, just ask your questions. We can always answer at the end as well. Ross, if you want to start like getting your slide ready or something and whatever, then
I have a quick question, Komal. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
I think it's a really good, it's more of a comment really. I really, really like your approach to personal statements and this color coding. How did you come up with it? I'm really curious.
How did I come up with it? I don't know. Like I was getting help from a medical student who's from Cardiff, but I don't know. I did this during my first time that I wrote a personal statement as well. I don't know where it came from. I think I just like things very categorized. So everything I do in my life is on a spreadsheet of some kind. So I like things categorized: red, green, orange. Like green being I've started it or I've done it. Sorry, orange being I've like on the way to doing it. Red being I've not done it. I like things really out, simple, straightforward, logical. So it came out of nowhere. I don't know.
Kamal, there are a few questions on the chat.
Okay, let's see.
Oh,
Did
there
you
you
take
go.
a year out when you did your internship? No, I did it in the summer with Naroshni. Naroshni was really kind. She put aside like £50 to help me do a little project that she'd done in. She was doing sepsis biomarker study at the time, and asked me to look at like the different types of cryopreservation studies out there and which one was the best for preserving white blood cells. But to be honest, there are so many types of summer internships. I wouldn't even say you need to take a complete year out unless you feel like you really want a very strong backup in biomedicine and biomedicine is just as strong of a career path as medicine is for you. Then I think, yeah, you should take a full year in industry and work towards that goal just as much as you would to any other goal, physician associate, etc., whatever. But there's so many things you can do in the summer. I wouldn't do it in the summer that you're going to apply to medical school, like where you're going to be doing UK CAT, BMAT. I wouldn't do it then. I would do it like after your first year.
Oh, there's another question from Patricia. I didn't.
How long do you need to do your volunteering? Now, this really is so different between medical schools. Like, for instance, if you go to Warwick, they'll have exact down to the number of hours that you need to have done. And some they even do, like, some of them even have, like, if you've done too many of one thing as well, that isn't too good. Like, I think Warwick is just a picky one. But generally speaking, I'd say at least 6 months is good. That shows long-term commitment, like 1 hour a week. But I've had people do other stuff. Like I was talking to one of my friends. She said that she had a very short time to do her volunteering. So she went to the hospital, told them flat out, listen, I've got no time. I need to have done a certain number of hours. Can you help me? And the lady there was really helpful. And she was like, oh yeah, sure. She gave her like 100 hours or something. I don't know. She gave her loads of hours in a week. She did like everything as much as she possibly could and tried to rank in hours that way. But to be honest, I think medical schools, they don't really care about the hours. Most of them don't. They like to look at how many months you've done it for, that the long-term progression. So I'd say minimum 6 months, but that's just me talking arbitrarily, like a safe amount.
Can I just say as well, like with these things, like how much do I need? What do I need? There's like people will apply and get into medicine. Like some people will get into the medical course on a whim because they've got good grades. They'll take the UK CAT like the day before the admission test closes. They'll like do a week in a hospital and they'll get in. But when I was applying and when we were applying, after you've already gone through all the effort of a degree, you somewhat want to try and make your application as unrejectable as possible, because otherwise you've got to do a whole other year's worth of prep. So you could do a week and throw your application in, but I don't know why you would want to kind of risk it when you've already put in so much effort getting all other elements of your application up to scratch.
Okay, and then what did you get in your A levels, if you don't mind me asking? Like I'm not going to say exactly what I got. I've never told anyone apart from my family. So what I got it was just enough for me to keep my options open as a graduate. Let's just keep it like that. The only places I couldn't apply to were Oxford and Cambridge. They were asking for 3As still. So I think I just about missed out. I think that's the answer to give. I think other people, when they've gotten, like, say they've gotten lots of C's and D's, they really struggle, because a lot of medical schools that are undergraduate still, but accept graduates, they still have a requirement on the A levels for chemistry and biology. So I'm sorry to give you a bit of a long-winded answer there, but yeah, I've not really told anyone. And let's see. I'm looking to clarify what kind of experience do you recommend, and how to find experience, as I'm struggling to find it within hospital clinics. So work experience is necessary. I would reach out to the hospitals. I don't know how it works for physician associate, but I would reach out. If you go, there's work experience pages on each of the hospital websites. If you look onto there, try and find an email address. If you can't find an email address, literally call up the switchboard and ask to be put through to like the HR department, like human resources, because they'll have a list of everyone who works there. Ask them straight up, like, I want to know who's the person involved in work experience. Can you please give me an email address? Can you please give me their phone number or something? That's what I did, and that's how I got through to a lot of places. And explain your situation. I think physician associate is different to medicine in the sense that medicine, there's a high recruitment for like 16, 17, 18-year-olds, but once you get to university, they kind of don't have a program pathway for lots of those students. But I think the physician associate would be absolutely different, because you can only be a graduate to apply to a physician associate. So that's what I would do. I'd reach out. I found the places where I was successful in finding it as a graduate was through Nawashni. So if you know a doctor at hospital, that's really good. So that was at MRI, but otherwise MRI had like a 16-year-old system, like if you had to be 16 years old, and here's a little like taste of medicine course or something. And the other place I got it that was really, really helpful, but they took ages to apply, but it was still good, was Macclesfield. Because this is a small district general, I feel like they don't really get these obscure requests as often as the really big hospitals. So that's what I would do. I think that's everything. So Ross, do you want to go ahead with interview stuff?
Yeah. Okay. Hi everyone. So my name's Ross. No doubt Collaborate's going to mess up my slides based off that first kind of medical interview thing, but we'll see what happens. So today I'm just going to talk a little bit about the interview process, where it sits in the kind of whole application process. And then we're going to look at the two conventional styles of interviews that medical schools still use. And we'll look at some of the most common MMI stations and a couple of example questions, and then some general tips for interviews. It's purposefully more detailed than I'm going to be able to get through, so I'm not going to say everything that's on the slides, but that's in the hope that these slides can be uploaded somewhere, or alternatively me and Kamal can find a time to come in and work through some of the questions with you. So how do I move the slide? There we go. So, this is going to mess up my whole thing. Anyway, this is me. My name is Ross, graduated in 2019. You can see did lots of cool things, like presented at the Future Health Conference. I'm now third year medic, well, in September at Leeds. So this is just your reminder to get involved with everything that's available at uni. I know it's probably been hard over the past few years, I do empathise. Again, a classic staple of my presentation. It used to really, really annoy me when I would speak to medical students or doctors and they would say, oh, getting in not that hard, that's the easiest part, it gets hard when you get there, whilst I was trying to juggle GAMSAT, UKCAT, BMAT, whilst trying to still get a first in my degree and blah, blah, blah. I was like, are you a psychopath or something? So I purposefully made this guide as soon as I put together my application, so that it could come from a genuine place and I wasn't writing it retrospectively. Again, I've given this to various people in Salford, so I can give it you or you can ask, but pretty much a lot of this a lot of this presentation is taken from the guide anyway, so it has most of the stuff that you'll need to apply.
Just to come in, it's on the file section in the team site, right? Go to the team site, it's under files. GEMS
Okay.
PA.
So what is the medical school application process? I'm quickly going to rush through a little story. So loads of people, when they're like 15, 16, maybe even a little bit older, they look at medicine and, they think, well, that seems cool, whether it's for money, whether it's an intellectual challenge, for the respect, because you want to work in the NHS, because you genuinely want to care for people, or whatever. And then the vast majority of those people look at what is required and get very, very scared. You've got admissions tests, you've got work experience, 3 different admissions tests. Can you fund it? Have you got the extracurriculars? Have you even got enough of a have you even got enough of a degree grade yet? Blah blah blah. And then therefore most people end up running straight for the door. So I'd say by the time you're even getting to the point in which you're putting together an application, you're actually already in the minority because you've already beat out the people that have just got scared and ran away. And then of the people that try to put together an application, unfortunately, most people will stumble at some kind of a hurdle, whether that's your degree or A levels, whether that's your work experience, whether it's a funding situation or an admissions test. I hold my hand up and say, you know, I failed the year out of A levels on the UK CAT. I hate that test. It's horrendous, but we won't go there. Not the right talk. But by the time you've put together an actual successful full application and you're sending it off, you're already in the absolute minority of applicants. And again, this is just a reminder that if you are going through this process, just take time to celebrate each little step or you'll go insane. And then of the people who actually put together a successful application, you're probably getting down to getting interview places, although it varies in the medical school, between about 1/3 of people will get interview offers. So again, you've gone from an already little minority who've even managed to put an application together to an even smaller minority who get interview, and then an even smaller minority who get offers. But my point here is that, unfortunately, the people who don't succeed at interview tend not to apply again, whether that's attrition, whether they're just fed up of the process. But statistically, they are the people that are most likely to get in next time. So I just wanted to preface and say, if this is you and it's genuinely what you want to do, please go for it again. I know it sucks, but it literally, you are the absolute minority by the time you get to interview, and you should be proud of getting there anyway. Okay, so that was the point of my story. So types of medical school interviews. So we have traditional interviews. These are less common, and they tend to incorporate a lot of the MMI kind of scenarios anyway, but they're generally more question and conversation based. You'll have a panel, usually of doctors or people in the healthcare space. They're only used now, I think, in certain unis like Swansea, Sheffield, Nottingham and Newcastle. And your interview is likely to last around 20 to 40 minutes. Like I say, a lot of the typical questions like why medicine and things like that will come up. But it's more of a conversation. You certainly probably won't be doing any manual tasks like you might be doing in the MMIs. And then far more common and pretty much the standard these days is the MMI. They're arguably a lot more fairer because you have 6 to 10 stations, no more than 10 minutes each, with your whole process lasting about 2 hours. The reason they're arguably more fairer is you therefore get 10 different examiners and 10 different opportunities. So in a traditional interview, you could argue someone on the panel just didn't like you, whereas it's not really an excuse in MMIs. So in MMIs, the stations are all very different, so you can approach them and prepare for them in different ways. My tips will be mostly focusing on MMIs. However, when I get to the general tips kind of section, they will definitely apply to the traditional interviews as well. I'll take questions at the end, by the way, if that's all right. I've just got too many slides. So these are station types and examples. That hasn't come through very well. So this is a personal station. So example questions might be, why do you want to be a doctor? In your personal statement, it says X. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? So you ask to reflect. Why medicine? Why not nursing or a physician's associate? How would you deal with competition in medical school? So again, just to reiterate, I'm not going to go through the answer of these questions because it's much better if you get together with people and work through them, whether that's with Naroshni or whether me and Kamal come in. But I think once I've gone through my tips, you'll be able to have a think about how to answer them. Another type of station is an actor or a role play station. So again, it's not come through, but your granddad's worried about having a routine blood test at the GP. Enter the station and talk to him about his concerns. What action would you take? The patient is to be diagnosed with terminal cancer. Enter the station and deliver the bad news in a professional manner. The hospital has lost the test results of Mrs. Smith's biopsy. Enter the station and deliver the news. So it might be dealing with a difficult patient or diffusing a situation. University or location specific stations. So why this university? What aspects of our MBCHB stood out to you? What can you tell us about the history of the medical school? What do you know about the demographic of the area that the medical school is in? What areas of the curriculum or structure do you not like? So I apologise, this came through a lot better on my Mac, but when you get the slides, they'll come through a lot better. I can still read it at least. These are professional knowledge questions, so don't get scared. I really have like kind of thrown the boat out there with what you would be expected to know. The likelihood is you'd be given the knowledge outside the door. But there may be some knowledge questions. So what do you understand about the mental health of the medical profession? Tell me some current trends in the NHS. What's the NHS long-term plan? Do you think the NHS's response to COVID was good or bad? Why or why not? Etc. Then you'll definitely 100%, I can guarantee, get a medical ethics station. These might be, what are the principles of medical ethics, or a scenario like a 13-year-old girl enters your general practice inquiring about contraception. What aspects of ethics might you want to consider in the scenario, and how would you provide the contraception? Video stations, so this might be watch a video of a patient consultation. What was good or bad about the communication style of the doctor, and what would you do differently next time? Or watching a ward round and answering what mistakes may have compromised patient safety on that ward round. Communication stations, look at this image and please describe it to the person next to you. So I'm sure you're all familiar with doing those silly little tasks where someone sits to the back of you and you've got to describe something. It's supposed to reflect how you would communicate complex things to patients. Or prioritization stations, which are actually really common. So you're going on a school camping trip as a volunteer. What are your priorities and considerations in sequential order? Which sounds really, really simple, but when you start to actually answer the question, you miss out a lot of obvious things. It's trying to demonstrate kind of systematic thinking. Data stations, again, quite common. So you'll look at the graph or the table or the figure. You'll need to describe the trends or explain the trends, what may the trends imply. Or it might be simple unit conversions, but I think they're a lot less common unless you go to certain kind of interview stations. And then there's admissions tests or experience statements. So you might be given back a piece from your admissions test, or asked about how your admissions tests went, and you'll be asked to reflect on whether your opinion has changed on the topic that you wrote about, or what you would do better in your preparation. The experience stations are really, really common. So describe a time where you showed X characteristic, a bit like Kamal was talking about before. So professionalism, courage, teamwork, leadership, you need to have those to mind, really. What did you learn from X experience on your personal statement? And as I'll talk about in the tips, you need to be aware of a somewhat of a reflective framework as you go along. So I'll slow down now and talk a little bit about some, if my presentation will move, some general interview tips whilst I just prepare my notes. So these are tips which will apply to MMIs or traditional interviews, but probably more MMIs. They are the majority nowadays. Let's see if this will go to the next slide. So contrary to what you may hear along the internet, you definitely can prepare for MMIs. I've sat on interviews at Leeds. I know people who've sat on interviews this current year at Leeds, and who do a lot of the admissions kind of work. At the end of the day, the medical school's job is to assess your suitability for the profession, and there's only so many ways that you can actually do that. Yeah, there's only one way to skin a cat. So even if the exact questions don't come up, you will have gained so many transferable skills from preparing, like your composure, like your thinking, like your delivery style. So it's really important that you take the preparation seriously. I feel like a lot of people relax once they've got an interview and they go in blind. It's not a good idea, in my opinion. The next one is thinking about what the question is actually designed to assess. So you need to almost have another level of cognition above what's asked. So if it's a question about a uni and what do you know about their course or the area or the demographic, it may seem like they just want you to compliment them, which is true in a lot of cases. I'm looking at like Oxbridge, Cambridge, all that. But what it's actually looking at is what level of research are you willing to go at? Because at this point, you will still have people who stumbled along, even though many people will have put in absolute maximum effort. And it might represent in the future your willingness to go away and research something that you're not sure about as a doctor. So although it can seem tedious doing the preparation, there is kind of method to the madness, although I will say like a lot of it is kind of just out there. Get used to acting. This is probably one of the most important tips. So across 3 interviews, I had 6 role play or acting stations. And it's the one that will take the most practice. If I'd have gone into my interview having done no acting practice at all, I think I would have just crumbled. It's getting over that initial feeling of like almost embarrassment. So you need to get together, people in this call and people who are watching on recording, and just practice with each other. You'll already be ahead of the other applicants if you don't have to think about the fact that you're acting, if that makes any sense. But another tip is, and this applies to medicine anyway, is you must be a human being first in these scenarios and a doctor second. So you're not expected to be a doctor. If it's a consultation with a little girl who's got a sore throat, you're not expected to prescribe antibiotics or convey this like sense of superiority, but you are expected to show compassion and adapt your communication style and be kind and be caring. So you must be a human being first. It will look really bad if you go in, and even if you do have knowledge from biomed, I would not suggest trying to use it. The next one is being honest and realistic. So this is a funny one. So in my Nottingham graduate interview, I actually got marked down for being too naive about the profession, which on retrospect, 3 years in, was probably pretty accurate. So it can be tempting to give unrealistically positive answers to questions. If you're asked about something like the current state of healthcare or the NHS or mental health, it doesn't look great to just give positives. Like with any argument, you need to give both sides. And if you are asked to give an opinion, it is imperative that you give the opinion. A lot of people don't end up actually giving their opinion in the end and justifying it, when you don't want to come across as passive or indecisive. Don't be dogmatic either about it, but you certainly must give whatever your opinion is. You need to have independent judgment. The next one is verbalize, verbalize, verbalize. This is probably the most important tip. So like most things in life, the MMI questions, there will usually be no right or wrong answer. But the problem is you need to demonstrate that systematic thinking and your ability to develop upon concepts and not just jump to an answer. So if you get given a question and you go in and it's a 1-sentence answer, even if it's completely the correct answer and you've done all the mental work in your head, it doesn't show anything to them. You almost need to get rid of the voice in the back of your head, and if you're working something through, work it out loud. So yeah, you need to practice. When you're practicing with people, practice going, if you're looking at data or how would you react to an ethical scenario, you say, well, the patient is young and therefore they might not understand some of the technical language, so I'd want to probably make my tone of voice softer and use some non-medical terms. Or I'm looking at the data, I can see this trend, so to describe it would be to say that when this goes up, this goes down. If I was to explain this trend, I might say that this causes this, and if I was thinking about what the implications might be, it might be this. Whereas if I go in and say, oh, doctors should spend less time on their phone off of this data, it shows absolutely nothing. So just get used to verbalizing. This is another one. This is probably the trickiest one, which is embracing silence. If you're sat there stuttering, spitting and mumbling for the first 20 minutes of your answer with no actual substance to your words, it is absolutely useless. And it's actually very, very impressive if you can say, I just have a minute, and you sit back and you think about things in your head, and then you give a nice, coherent, concise answer. It's extremely hard to do, and I definitely didn't do it because it's the temptation to fill the space. But if you can do it, do it. Know the university. Unfortunately, there's just no getting out of this one. It is important that you know the structure of the course. Of course it is, and you are going to probably be living there, so you want to know that. And as Kamal will tell you, you also want to know a little bit about the history of the actual location. So because things like the demographic of where you're going to live in uni and where you may potentially work are really important aspects of healthcare. So yeah, that's just some of the groundwork you're going to have to do, unfortunately. Have an answering framework, again, probably one of the most important ones on here. It's very easy in the high pressure environment, as you all know. When you sit in an exam, suddenly the things that you could do which are second nature in your bedroom, you can't summon. Something to fall back on, like this STAR framework, which is situation, task, action, results, are really good for just giving you that framework and making sure you work through your answers systematically. Or in terms of reflection, if you're asked to reflect, and again, Kamal will tell you that reflection is absolutely shoved down your throat at medical school. You need to say kind of what happened, why it happened, how you felt about it, how that situation will influence you in the future. And it's really important that you have that thing which is called open loop thinking, because in medicine that allows us to learn from our mistakes or to continue to do positive things. If you are just saying what happened and why it happened and how it made you feel without saying how it will influence you in the future, your reflection is pretty much useless. Don't let one poor station phase you and prepare coping strategies. So again, this is some of the groundwork you can do. And when you first start practicing with each other, you will certainly, your heart will go and you will feel under pressure. And over time, you'll develop strategies to actually calm yourself and you'll become more confident with your delivery and things like that. The whole point of the MMI is designed to stop this from happening so that one station can't ruin your application. But what happens is, if you get knocked for 6 and you can't actually compose yourself between the stations, then one station will ruin your application. So I actually recommend thinking about coping strategies, and only you will know how to do that. Staying relatively up to date with healthcare news, bit of a stretch. I would say in the months leading up to your interview, you probably want to be keeping an eye on the news. Apart from that, I'll talk about preparation list in a minute. You want to have a general idea of some big topics. For example, for you, you probably want to be looking at COVID. I imagine that's creeped its way into its interview quite a lot recently. And it's harsh. On the morning of your interview, please have a quick flick, because some interviewers are nasty like that. And at the end of the day, even if you're not asked directly, you can bring it in to reinforce one of your other points and you'll score brownie points. Record your answers and do mock interviews. This is essential. So not only is it what you're actually saying, but it's how you talk. Because if I start talking like this, then no one can understand what I'm saying. Or if I start shouting, it's awful. So you need to record your answer to a question like why medicine, something which you can rehearse, get somebody else to listen to it. Because this, at the end of the day, might reflect in a high pressure situation how you're going to talk to a patient. And even if your content is absolutely phenomenal, if no one can understand you, then there's no point. Mock interviews are simply the absolute gold standard practice. And I'm sure Naroshni or me and Kamal can organise some way of doing something like that. Finally, RTF and ATFQ, which stands for read the question and answer the question. The number of times at MMIs where you've memorized the 4 pillars of medical ethics and you go into a station about a girl who needs contraception and you just talk generally about ethics and you don't actually say what you would do or answer the question, the interviewer is literally forced to only give you a certain mark. It's great to elaborate, but your number one priority should be answering the question. And then coming to the end, I just wanted to talk about a preparation list. So if this is PA or medicine, it doesn't really matter. You need to have a certain number of things that you've gone away and researched. A lot of this, unfortunately, like in exams or anything else, you will have learned and you will not use, but you want to secure marks wherever you can. And I've just copy and pasted from my guide some of the stuff that I looked at, but massive disclaimer, there's probably a lot more things since me and Kamal have been out of the kind of application loop that you will need to look at now. And some of this might be out of date, but I just highlight a few, I guess. So looking at junior doctor contracts, what are the core values of the NHS, which is probably very relevant, pillars of medical ethics, the aging population, still very relevant, Gillick competence, again, you're going to need to understand. Why medicine? Can you name a time where you showed X? Which is probably one of the most important ones to remember, because if you're in an interview station and someone says, can you name me a time where you showed professionalism, and you haven't got some kind of an example for a few different skills, it literally throws you so hard. I cannot describe like how hard it is to summon up an experience in that moment. So I would have a few situations kind of memorized, and if worst comes to the worst, just lie. But I didn't tell you to do that. Why nursing over medicine? Revisit your personal statement. Make sure you know it inside and out. Mental health in the NHS. But again, I would say the take-home message from the preparation list is that anyone on your course interested in medicine or physician's associate or anything, get a shared Google Doc, start whacking away at some of the ones that are in my guide and then some more recent ones, and work together to fill in the gaps. Remember, at Salford, you're not competing against each other. Like Kamal always says, there's enough competition elsewhere. I definitely wouldn't have got in without cooperating with Kamal and the Biomed Soc and Naroshni. So it's too lonely of a process to try and do it alone anyway. So I would just suggest finding a few people who will crack on with you. Thank you and good luck. And my contact details are at the start of the presentation. Feel free to email me if you need anything, but do your due diligence first. I'm busy in term time, but I've got like months off now. So if you need to email me or get in touch for anything, then do. Thank you very much.
Questions, anyone? So, I mean, I can tell you that nowhere in the country will you get two better talks than the ones you have heard, guys, right? So, and this is all Salford products, right, at the end of the day, and this is what you are capable of. You know, that's how you should look at it. Each of you is capable of doing this, and I mean, I really mean it, that you will not, you know, you can pay for this, but you will not get two better talks. Thank you, Ross and Komal. I mean, it's one thing, you just, by achieving so high, it's a great thing for our programs, but then to come back and help us, it has been even more wonderful. And again, it's another lesson, guys, to the rest of you. You know, you have to come back, you have to give back as well, because we really need that help. So thanks, Ross, and thanks, Komal. I just can't tell you how grateful we are.
Don't be silly. Don't be silly.
No, thank you so much for Naroshni. Like, I think you're bigging us up too much there.
No, I honestly mean it.
I love being invited. Sorry? Salford will always be my home uni. I don't think of Leeds anywhere in the same regard, to be honest. Like, that's just the way it is.
I agree.
Also, don't fall into the trap of like romanticizing medicine too hard. I would say, like you I don't know about you, Kamal, but like different lecturer every single lecture. Like the quality ranges from like 1 to 10. Is nowhere near the confidence in my material that I got from Salford, from working things up from the ground up in terms of like learning properly immunology, cell biology, and then developing on it across the 3 years. It's a great base to start medicine, because a lot of people in medical school, you have a week of immunology and you do what was essentially the whole of the biomed course, but just like absolute speed mode. And you know, a lot of the kids in there are bright enough to absorb that. But for me, certainly, most of the foundations of what I base my kind of medical revision on is like from Salford, 100% from biomed. Like, I would have really struggled without it, and I'm not saying that. Like, so nothing's wasted. Learn your stuff, and learn it because you want to learn it, especially if you're going to go into PA or medicine, because trust me, like, if you think you're done with asthma after learning about it like 5 million times, trust me, we go through it all again and beyond. So just learn it all. It's good stuff, and enjoy it. Enjoy the consistency and the quality of teaching as well. Don't think that like it's Salford versus Manchester or it's Salford versus UCL. Like, trust me, a lot of these people can't be bothered to teach you. And I'm not slandering Leeds. The quality has been like pretty decent, but there's a lot more up and downs than there was at Salford. Salford was like a guaranteed quality delivered, in my opinion. So yeah.
Can we have that in writing, Ross?
No,
no, Oh, no,
same
absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I put it together in a bit of a rush, so it won't be that great. But so the UCAT stands for Universal Clinical Aptitude Test, and basically it's one of the 3 exams, I think, for when you apply for medicine and dentistry. It consists of 5 main sections. So you've got verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, abstract reasoning, decision making, situational judgment, and that's one of the mainly about ethics and everything. And one of the crucial aspects of it is timing, because you don't get a long time to do the questions. So for the questions, it's an average of about 30-40 seconds per question, and you get about a minute reading time for it. Okay, so first with verbal reasoning, it mainly consists of true, false, and can't tell questions. And you also get a free text. So basically, you'll get a large text to read through. And in that text, you'll be asked questions, so incomplete statements, or asking what is the writer's thoughts about what is written or something like that. How do you portray it? And some key tips are basically learning to identify keywords in the passage. Spotting common tricks. So you do that by basically practicing a lot of questions, and you get to understand how the use of juxtaposition or dispersion throughout the text, and so you don't get tripped up by it. And also understanding the contradictory terms which they sometimes use. So that's an example of a question, and I'll give you a minute to read the text and answer the question. Okay, everyone's got an answer? Kind of can't see chat, so I'm not sure.
Most people have put B, Zane.
B. Alright, keep a record of it, because the answers are at the end of the stem. So there's like 3 questions, and then it goes through the answers. And
Okay, I don't know. C also tags it for me, but
yeah.
shall I fail the exam by putting in C anyway? Yeah, go on.
I'm going to make a record of that one today, 'cause that's a B.
I might
Keep
fail
an eye
today.
Right.
Never know, it could be right.
You could be right, that's it. You are the only
Next one.
here. So.
So I'll give you 30 seconds this time for this one. And that's time up. Everyone's got an answer?
I think A. I could be totally wrong. I didn't get to read it all.
Because that's the times you get in the actual exam. So it just gives you a rough idea of how much revision or practice you have to put in, if you get me.
I mean, the thing that led me to that answer is Musk had a difficult childhood. Growing up, he was relentlessly bullied at school, once hospitalised.
Yeah.
So that's what led me to A.
Okay. Any others?
I also went for A. Rana, why did you go for B? Where is the handy for it? Yeah. His success has. That's also correct though, because that says, the second line itself says has drawn rise to comparisons.
Anyone go for C or D?
Actually, I might change to B because it doesn't say he hated it. It says it was tough.
Yes,
We-
That's the thing, you can't make assumptions.
I picked B just because it says that he
Yeah.
was bullied, but it didn't say that he hated it. I might
Yeah,
be wrong,
yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, I might change. Sorry, can I change?
Can I change too?
Yeah, sure.
Can I change? I changed to B.
Okay, so it's
But
A or
the
B.
only thing
I
is that's making an assumption as well, maybe.
Don't make
Okay,
Yeah,
let's see
if
the
you read the
answer.
last part of it. Okay. Next question. I think that's the last one of the for it then. I'll give you 30 seconds again.
You know.
Okay, everyone got an answer for that one?
I think most people have said C,
C.
C.
but I'm a little bit. I thought C too, but then based on what you said about not making assumptions, it's made me
Yeah.
a little.
Anyone gone for any of the others?
No one
Yeah.
has, no.
Fair enough. Alright, we'll get the answers then. I think. Yeah. So the first one, it was C.
Hey!
And the reason for this,
I got it! I got it!
Yes, you got
Only
it.
I got it!
philanthropy is a love for humanity. And in the text, he describes how he's trying to make a positive impact for humanity. And it also talks about his charitable donations and everything. So that kind of points towards philanthropy instead of A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Philanthropy is the kind
And
of doing something for society.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's about
And
doing
then,
something for society, yes.
okay, next one. Fearful of artificial intelligence.
Oh,
Right at the
no.
end,
No one got that right.
What?
on the last sentence, it says humanity's largest is existential threat. So basically, it refers to it as a negative thing. And that's why you can put D, if you get me. With the, I think it was B you guys picked. On that sentence, you're assuming that it's the motor industry. He hasn't just done the motor industry, he's done PayPal, SpaceX, other stuff, and that it mentions that in the exact same sentence. So you can't assume it's all down to the motor industry, and that's the only reason that was wrong.
Right.
Okay. Next one. Okay, his difficult childhood.
Oh.
So basically, in that text, it states that because of his difficult childhood, it led him to look at computers and other things, and that changed his mindset. And that's the reason why he became a success rather than his ambition, if you get me.
Do you know
That was a
something?
difficult one.
I didn't, I didn't read the whole thing through because I panicked and didn't read it. Did anybody actually read? Should you read?
That's
Yeah, so at the start you're meant to read the text. So with these questions, some people look for keywords. So for example, with success or whatever, you might skim through it, but certain questions that doesn't work. So what I do, I read through it all and break it down each paragraph. So the first paragraph might be an introduction to what he does. Second paragraph may be about his childhood. Third paragraph, I can't remember what that was about, and then the final was basically just an overall view about his beliefs, if you get me, about artificial intelligence. And you break it down that way, so when you then look at the question, you know exactly where to look. So it's a lot quicker, if you get me. So you don't have to read the whole STEM again.
So if it's do you all this is done online, isn't it? Do you have a way of kind of highlighting things or something like that? No.
I don't think so.
No.
Not sure I can remember. No.
Yeah. So if it's on a paper, you could kind of highlight it, and that
Exactly. Yeah.
for some people that's easier.
Because you get a pen and paper anyway, so you can maybe write down keywords or something, and then maybe, I don't know, a way of doing that, but that's it. So,
yeah. Tough though, that is tough. So, but the thing is, I think
that's
the
the
more
worst
you,
bit.
the more you do it, you develop that trend, and that is why it's important that you get into groups and do this, so that go on.
Exactly, considering questions. But yeah, so decision making. So decision making's in two types of questions. So you've got a multiple choice where you've got 4 possible answers and you have to pick which one's correct for a scenario which it goes through. Or it can bring out a scenario and it has like 4 or 5 statements and you have to put yes or no next to the statement to say whether it's true or not. I think the example I got is the multiple choice one, yeah. So I've only got one example for decision making and this is it. I'll give you 30 seconds to answer that question because that's what you get. No, 40 because that's what you get in the exam. Okay, go for it. Okay, everyone got an answer?
Oh no. Gosh, Patricia, how did you think so quickly?
I think
What did you put?
D. So you got B. I'm probably wrong then.
Anyone else?
I think D. Operation A has a higher chance of complications. The Operation A will experience complications. Oh no, 1 minute, I've read it wrong. 1 in 16 will have complications with A, whilst 75 out of 80 will have complications with B.
So in the exam you have a calculator as well, so you can work out different statistics if needed.
So I think B is the worst one. Is Operation A better? No. Yeah. And so it's going to be, I think, D. Operation A has a higher chance of complications. What do you think, Roshni?
Can we use a calculator for this? Or is that not
I
allowed?
hate.
Yeah, you get a calculator. So throughout the whole UCAT exam, you get like a digital calculator. So you need to get used to using that as well. That's why I recommend Medify, because it gives you practice with it.
B, I think, but I'm
Everyone
not good at
agreeing?
this kind of things. Yep, let's see.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it was B. So basically, if you work out percentages, it puts it in like a little table. So you get a pen and paper next to you, and basically write down the success rates and the complications. Then go through each of the each of the points, and see which one's correct. And when you get to B, if that's right, you just know that's the answer. You get me?
Yeah. Zain, is it better to first read the answer, first read the question, and then go back, because then you kind of with that direct. So if you,
it's a lot better to read the question first. Not the question, I mean the stem first.
Yeah,
so
you read the stem first. Yeah.
And then so that way you know what it's going to be talking about first.
Yeah,
and then write notes
otherwise
on
then you can concentrate on where to kind of do the reading.
Exactly. And the more you practice, the quicker you get at it, if you get me.
Yeah.
And okay, next one. So abstract reasoning. So this one's basically you get so you've got 4 different types of questions. Type 1 is where you've got 2 sets of 2 sets, and they basically have different squares with different patterns in, different sets of shapes in, and basically each set has its own pattern. Set A and set B, the patterns are similar but kind of opposite usually, if you get me. And type 1 is basically you have to state which set it belongs to, if you get me. And type 2 is basically you get a series of shapes which alternate. So for example, it's through a pattern, so maybe add a square or add a side every single time. And basically you state which one is in the following sequence. The third type is where you've got two sets of shapes and one's been changed to create another shape, and then you have to find out what that pattern is and apply that for a shape which it gives you. It's easy once you do the question anyways, I know. And the fourth one is basically the same as the first, but you only get one shape. You have to say which set it belongs to, A or B. And some tips for it is the test shape it gives you, ignore that, look at both sets and basically find out what the pattern is. So I look at the simplest box and use that as a way of trying to identify what the pattern is, because it's usually easier. And once you've done that, then try to match the test shape. And it takes a bit of practice. Okay, so there you go. And that's one of the questions. Everyone got an answer? Yes.
I don't know. Totally off.
No. What did everyone else put?
Yes, I think B.
Yeah.
But I'm probably wrong on this as well.
What's the reasoning behind it?
Why do I think B?
Yeah.
Because when I'm looking at the top one, so the top one with the triangle, top left, the square with the line coming down at the top sits
It's on the left.
ever so slightly to the left, and the same with B. The top one with the circle and the cross on B sits to the left.
That's the same with A though as well.
Oh yes, it is, isn't it? But then, okay, what's third one down then? So third one down sits directly below to an angle. Third one down. Oh, it's A.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh no.
What did everyone else put?
It's A.
Yes, it's A.
So they always have 2 or 3 which is similar, and there's like one bit which might differentiate it between the other, if you know what I mean. So you get the answer. And it's about time you again, you get 30 seconds. Yeah.
We will fail. That's fine.
No, honestly, I think the thing with these abstract or non-verbal reasoning, it takes a massive amount of practice.
Yeah, it does. But
really, really good at it. I'm terrible, and she's 10.
Yeah, it's just finding patterns, and sometimes the patterns are impossible. Like they might be the most bizarre things you've ever seen in your life, and you wouldn't think of it, even if you have done practice. It's just one of those things.
Okay.
But I think once you start doing, this is why practice is important. Once you start doing it, it just comes, because you learn those patterns.
Exactly, and sometimes it takes a minute to do the first question, but once you've done the first question, the others you can do in like 10-15 seconds at a time.
Yeah.
So it kind of works that way.
Yeah.
Especially with the set A and B ones, I usually give it a minute to do the first question, so you define the pattern, answer it, and then the rest just come naturally because you know it.
Yeah.
And next, so that's the answer. Set A was A, and it's basically just the positioning of the circles get moved, and that's it.
Yeah.
Quantitative reasoning. So that's basically a maths question. So it basically uses basic maths, and it basically gives you problems to solve, usually consisting of tables, graphs, or 2 or 3 dimensional shapes. And tips is just practicing your basic maths and keep on top of it. And once you do quite a few questions, you get that pace up, and it's probably one of the easier sections, I think, if you're all right. But yeah, there's a question. I give you 30 seconds. Yeah, you'll probably need a calculator for this one as well, if you have one. Okay, everyone got an answer?
Is it A?
What's the reasoning?
I probably did it wrong. Right, so 1 minute. So unleaded. Is she going with easy drive unleaded?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's £30. Easy. So unleaded fuel costs 116.9 pence.
Yeah.
And the car will, for the 200 miles, will use 0.5 litres per mile. So I'm going to do 0.15 litres times the 0.5 litres per mile times the 200 miles. That comes
300.
out.
Yeah.
Multiply.
300.
Yes.
Wait, it's 0.15. Yeah.
0.15 times the 200 miles.
Yeah.
Times the pence, the price in pence, plus
Yeah.
the car hire.
Exactly, yeah.
So is
Did
that
everyone else get the same answer?
Damn, she's good.
only
On
at
top
that,
of it.
only at that one type of question? Well, I don't know. Was that right, Zane?
Yeah, it was right.
Yeah.
65,000.
Yeah. Well, that was
That's
easy.
good. That's good. That's very good.
So yeah, the maths
have
ones are
any,
basically just that.
students has anybody got that answer?
I got A, but I didn't actually get 65.7p. I actually got like 65,000 and 7. I
Right.
thought that was the closest one.
Fair enough.
That's decimals. Multiplying by decimals. You have got
Yeah, I
the
I
multiplication wrong.
multiplied it without the decimal, and I got
Point
like
0.15.
1,000. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Okay.
Good.
Third.
Good,
And then
Isha.
the last
Isha, very good.
is situational judgment. So this is the ethical one, and that'll be used for PhD students as well. So basically, there's two types of questions. One's the appropriateness. So you get given a scenario, and it gives you an action, and basically asks you to rate the appropriateness of the action they took. And it's basically multiple choice. And you also get one for importance. So it basically asks you to rate the importance of the action they took, and that's basically what it is. And a useful thing to do is read the GMC medical guidelines, because it gives you an idea what they expect you to do as a doctor, or in that scenario as a foundation or something. And you're not supposed to apply personal judgment. It's basically you're meant to write what you think they'd expect you to do, if you get me, not what you do personally, with the knowledge you have. And in order to score well, you have to try to understand what's being tested and what they're trying to look for. And the best way to do that is just practice again, to be honest. So here's an example. I'll give you 30 seconds. Everyone got an answer?
I think people are still thinking about it. Do you want to post in the chat? We've got B's coming through, one C.
I'll go with Jomana as well.
Oh, 2 C's. So it's a Naroshni versus Sarah count off again.
So what's everyone's thought process behind it?
Lots of C's, a B coming through. Thanks, Bruce.
Yeah, I think the thing is he's feeling almost sick with dread and nerves, but knows he needs to get over it at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a clinical situation, so I don't 100% know. But I think most of us would feel sick with dread before an exam as well.
Yeah.
Then once you get into it, you can recover.
Yeah, I mean, it is between B and C, I think, but I don't know.
Okay, what's making you lean more towards C or a B?
For me, it's you've got to get on with things in life.
Yeah, it depends on very personal things. This is the thing. So for me also, for me personally, it would be appropriate but not ideal, but you have to do it. But in today's context, I think it might be inappropriate but not awful.
But think about, you're a medical student and you're medical school and this is your first placement, and the only way to get over it or to get the experience is to do it, if you get me.
Yeah.
So in that context, would you be more leaning towards B?
This might sound
I would. I personally would.
Why is it? This might sound really stupid, but why is it inappropriate? Have I misread something? Like, why would it be inappropriate for him to just because it says he takes a deep breath, he calms and goes to the observation.
Yeah.
But why is that inappropriate?
I'm just playing to the modern political correctness thing where everything is inappropriate. If somebody says they're feeling sick, and if I say no, go ahead, they will sue me, won't they? That's not personally what I feel is I will say go ahead and do it. I would say a very appropriate thing to do, but then I might get sued for that. That's why I'm saying inappropriate.
Okay, so let's see the answer then. Oops, no, there's another one. Okay, there you go, one more.
What's that? Okay.
It's another question. Give you another 30 seconds and then we'll get the answers.
It's the same question have you shared?
Oh, it's a different one. It's the same stem, but it's a different question, if you get me.
Oh.
All right, this one says tell the nurse that he's feeling unwell. All right, no, I get it now.
I think B again, because if he's taken the decision to express how sick he's feeling, then there's nothing wrong with that. If you know that you're unwell to the point where you need to tell the nurse in charge, then you've done the right thing because you know you're not fit to practice or fit to be around patients at that moment.
In which case, I think it would be A.
Stronger, maybe even A, because if you know you're not well, you know you're not well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else got a different answer? I can't see the chat, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, so we've got everything. We've got A, B, C, D.
So varied answers. All right. What's everyone's thought? That's it. Okay.
I think B.
B?
Yeah, I think.
Got you. Why?
I think Usman, I, and Sarah have gone for A. Go on. Why?
Because I think he's obviously, if you're feeling sick during a procedure, you shouldn't really go into the room because you basically putting the patient in danger. But then it's appropriate that he's not going. So it's appropriate but not ideal. That's what I think. I mean, I'm not sure.
I think you're right.
Yeah, again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Put
Okay, so
that way, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I changed too. I must change it to B.
So it could be B for both then. Nothing. It's not ideal. Okay, I'm going to change it to B.
Okay. So first one was be.
Yay!
So it'll be disruptive if you can't keep it together during the observation, but it's right to acknowledge that you'll have to get used to those sort of thing. So if you insist on going, you should tell someone about how he's feeling. If you hear me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So yeah, because he's a medical student, you'll have to get used to it either way. And the second one is also be. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we should let everyone know how he's feeling, but he does need to overcome the issue. If you hear me.
Well done,
Don't avoid it.
Patricia.
Yeah,
Good,
there
good
you go. See if you got it right.
Bruce,
And then
well done.
that's it.
Aksa, well done.
Brilliant.
Right. I mean, I think it's very interesting. I think something like that. You know, if nothing else, it also keeps our mind active, and you know, it's a very good exercise to just keep alert. And guys, I think you must get into groups and do this. I'm happy to join in as well. So Zain, you must lead a couple more of this.